Hello, dear viewers. We're in another show of our series, New Life. We're trying to verify the changes the business world is going to go through as a result of the global crisis. It will have to implement changes to suit itself to the reality after the crisis. We have Dr. Rav Michael Leitman, Igor. We have a business consultant and economist with us. We want to try and develop, first of all, to conclude what we started in the other shows from the perspective of understanding the crisis, and then afterwards start talking about the goals of a business in the new world. I wanted to ask, in the previous shows we talked about the ego and the desire to receive, which led to the crisis. I tried to talk to my friends who are economists. They didn't understand what I said. They might have remembered that they talked about some social theory about ego, but they don't understand what we're talking about. How can we explain the development cycle with different terminology? That's a problem, because people don't understand what the motivation is of this whole process we went through. The inner motivation. Like we talk about life. If you talk to psychologists, they'll talk to you at the psychologist level. If you talk to biologists, they'll talk to you from the hormonal level. And we're talking also at another level that's called the level of desires, where every one of the scientists, psychology, biology, or let's say from my science, which is anthropology, a perspective of reality, it's from inner phenomena, which actually define what happens with us in life. So just like a biologist will say there's a hormonal change is like this or like that in a person's body, and all kinds of acids and and that's why he behaves the way he does. A psychologist will say, as a result of a change in a process that a person is going through, where we see inner evolution, and that's the result. The level of my science is more inner. It talks about the general nature. We spoke of this already. That we say it's a desire to enjoy. Just like anything inanimate wants to hold on to its format, its structure. All the molecules, we see if we want to break it, we have to heat it up a lot, or we have to bring a lot of energy from outside to break it. It has a force that holds it and doesn't want to give up its current format. And at the inanimate level, it wants to hold itself. That's its desire. That's called a will to receive, a will to fill itself, a will to exist in a state in the most convenient and best manner. At a vegetative level, it's motivated to develop. And then you see how the plant, with water, it has years of growth, it takes shape. It's always in accordance with how much it can absorb from the environment in the most optimal way. Living. It's looking where it's the best place to live, best environment, how to change the environment slightly. They build like a nest. They make it hotter or colder. They know where to build. A man, his desire is big to enjoy everything that he sees in life. And through that builds his life in a convenient way. The maximum effectiveness, minimum investment. I see from your little smile that you understand. That's the foundation that is common for all creatures, all humans in our world. But in people, it's very, very, very developed. Just to enjoy for themselves. And do they have enough, the question is, do they have enough perspective to enjoy? And then they run into all kinds of problems. We have to take into account all kinds of data for the right calculation. And that's reality. So we can talk about the desire to receive, about a person's ego. Ego is not only a desire to receive, it's in wanting to enjoy on somebody else's account in a way that I know that I'm causing him damage, but I don't care. I want to enjoy. Wherever my will to receive becomes aggressive, using the public, the masses. It's not just a matter of good exchange, mutual exchange, like between friends, where there's some kind of consideration. But when it's only for my enjoyment, that's called ego. That means the will to receive that's completely out of control. Whether it's an animate, vegetative, animate, they survive according to instincts. They don't make calculations. Nature causes them to act in a certain way and they operate. But a person has to look more and more how I can enjoy from the environment. It's usually from people that are similar to me, other humans. And the special problem is that we enjoy, that we're greater, higher, stronger, that we control more others. This gives us pleasure. So if we would only be satisfied in our life like animals, everyone needs to live and get what he needs for life, then we would arrange our lives like primitive tribes. Then we wouldn't have any crisis or anything. And our development became more and more aggressive, more and more on the account of others, of the public. We don't do any calculation. It's that it's coming back to us in some manner. We've reached in our development by enjoying, by our communication, this global connection. It's been revealed for good and for bad. On the one hand, I can be in business and in pleasure that I get from the whole world. And on the other hand, this connection also has its negative side, its negative feedback that I receive for sure in return a response. And this response can be negative. And usually in accordance, if I, along with my business with the whole world, if I don't take the public into consideration, because we're starting in the global world to be connected to each other, then the more I hurt the public, whether they won't like it or not, whatever I do bad, it comes back to me because we're connected in one system. And next time I might not be able to do business with him, or there might not be anyone to sell to anymore because I've ruined the market in my bad relation to the market. Or they learned something and then they're trying to get back at us. They're trying to get revenge for what I did to them. So the global world that's suddenly being revealed, this general connection between us, it's a new thing. And we need to learn it. I don't know how many financiers know it and feel it, because you need to have a special feeling in each of us for it, what world we're in. We're missing this feeling of the public, especially like business people who go out to sell people. It doesn't matter what. Not just to a person, a salesperson who knocks on your door and wants to sell something, but in general, in a major way, huge businesses, everyone wants to bring something to the market to profit and to grow larger and larger until in the grand plans, he wants to control the world, conquer the world. So it turns out that we don't understand the conditions, the new conditions that we're in all of a sudden. And in the news, these new conditions were connected between us in family life, in education of a man, in our social life, in politics, economics, ecology, in everything. Everything has suddenly become connected, and this connection is bringing us from all places, all these responses that are pretty much negative because we don't know how to receive the global world. We don't know how to work with it. When I go to sell something, I normally look around. What's the market? What will happen? And even before the global connection was revealed, I saw what the market needed, and I try to bring it according to his desire, and I produce something and I sell it. Maybe that's what the market doesn't want, but I know how to produce it. So I'll awaken something in the market that people will want that product, and I'll sell it. Like say Coca-Cola, the taste of life. I always give this slogan until they buy the Coca-Cola from me, and that's it. But that was in a linear, one-sided way from me to the user. But now this user, he's connected to me in thousands of different connections in return. Through the banks, through loans, governments, politics, all kinds of connections that go back to me. So it turns out that I can't make the correct calculation, what the response will be to what I do. And then it turns out that all of a sudden I'm stuck in a situation that's called a crisis, which is actually as a result of our lack of understanding about the new system between everyone. Everyone is like producers, users. Even that I only buy, the fact that I buy from you, I'm becoming also a supplier because I'm supplying my response. Can I buy or not? In what relation? In what manner? It starts being very, very complicating. It's not enough that we'll talk about it now. We don't have within us, within our ego, we don't have a system to understand others, to understand the world, to make the correct calculation in its responses. Because within us, we're missing this integral inner system in each of us. And then when I do business today, or plans and banks or whatever, I can't take into account all the data that is necessary today. And then it turns out that I don't succeed. And in order to succeed in this new world, we need to understand the new system, the connection between everyone, and build inside a person this format, this template, that he'll know how to get along in this new world. That it's not just about business. Why can't people build families properly? Why can't they get along in anything today? It's not just a crisis of economics or the financial system. It's about everything that a person deals with, because this global, this integral connection between us, it's general. It includes every aspect of our lives. If I go out to the street, to my colleagues, there's the gas prices going up. Even those people seeing, and there's people talking about this connection, the instinct of these business owners, they're waiting for others to take the step in the direction of the connected world that you're talking about. And the question is, what has to change? What will change to make this change? Everyone, based on their rationality, thinks that the other one wants to still hurt him, to take advantage of him. So where do we start? Where's the point where we can start from? How can it start a change in economy? The change has to be in education. Nothing will help. But rather, we have to take these people that are in these wrong connections, the financiers, economists, and industrial that belong more to export or production. They need to change their perspective of the world. That's why this crisis is continuing, and we don't know how to overcome it. Nobody even has a solution, and there won't be a solution. The solution is in matching ourselves to the new world, our connection to the new world that has emerged between us. We have to develop here an integral education and teach people not in a simple, instinctive manner. That everyone makes a living off one another and was happy and was satisfied, could satisfy his desire. Today it's impossible. So until a person doesn't acquire through the new education the inner system, that through it he looks at the world, he understands the world, absorbs grasps the world properly, we won't be able to bring them the method of correct management. Before we talk about these changes that are far off, I want to talk about a stage before. Let's try and look at what's happening in the world economy today. There's very clear data that how we got to this current system. In Europe, they didn't follow all the IPOs there. They racked up big debts, and now there's nowhere to return the money. Why? Because they thought one way. They thought it was a one-way thing. Turns out that the economy is going ups and downs. They built a pyramid. What's it called? Those businesses, the financial markets, financial sectors. That if you don't develop, you fall completely. You always have to make the consumption higher and higher. You always have to make the wheel of the economy go round and round. It's like that's the neoliberal system. That the people at the top had all kinds of motivation to improve the economy, and the employees will need all kinds of products. And the plan was that the happiness would trickle down from the head of the pyramid that would develop things that would. That's like America, the American dream. In Israel, it was also it's called neoliberalism. That was the direction. Now, something in that throughout the year caused major gaps in society. And now they want to close the gaps. And they think that that's the reason for the crisis. There's research that shows that the gaps in society, it's not an economic phenomenon. The people at the top they don't have an interest in the gaps being so big because they need people to be able to buy stuff. There's like a rationality here that explains from an economic perspective that the society needs to be more balanced. And they're not talking necessarily about this dependence, like you said before, that a person has to take all the parameters. They're talking about something that's very defined. Not that I need to. It's enough to hand out money to the poor people, and in that way you renew the whole system. It's good enough to hand out money to continue in the trend of growth. How do you see this? This can soften the blow in some way, to drag it out a bit. But we have to understand the human species have reached a place where they're connected, and this mutual connection will obligate us to be in accordance with it. In our understanding and our feeling of the integral world, of a common humanity. It's also connected to countries, what's happening in Africa. and South America. I don't have enough words to convey the feeling that truly, by bringing the society down to a level of smaller gaps, you can calm things down temporarily only temporarily, because still this network between us has changed. The human society has a different template, different format, and we have to take that into account if we're talking about a solution for the crisis. But they can't even come to that. Where do you see politicians or some head of government or someone that's capable of bringing a plan like that, where in half or a quarter even we will close the gaps? What will we get out of it? What do you mean temporarily? Temporary calm means that you calm those millions of people that are now unemployed and have nothing to live off. First of all, look after them, because that's a dangerous situation. That's one. What will it help you to build some big castle or something on an island and isolate yourself from the world? That's existing for the meantime until they reach you. How do you imagine being in a world where we see out of no option, we're in a market, a shrinking market. It's not shrinking because people don't want to buy. People don't need to buy so much as they did before. The market is too... You're taking things out to the market, so many things. You're getting into competition. And you want to fill everyone in order to profit from things that humanity is not capable and doesn't even want to swallow all these products. They don't need them. I go into the supermarket. There's 200 types of cheese, 300 yogurts. How many do we need? I understand that whoever produces it wants to make money and there's competition. What do you see for yourself? What's the limit? Where's the red line? There's complete economic approaches, theories that let's let nature, human nature, do the work. Let's privatize everything, police, everything, put everything into private hands, and then we will reach economic balance. And all the businesses that don't need to survive, it's like a Darwinism economic, and whatever needs to survive will survive. But that's how it is anyhow. Whoever survives does, and whoever doesn't, doesn't. But even the public services to privatize. But there'll be revolutions and wars, civil wars. We can't just, if people were balanced, if it was people who had like a rational approach to the
Подход в ощущении ближнего, а так ты приводишь мир к гражданским войнам и к хаосу.
Can you imagine a world without police? We're not saying without police. We're saying the police will also be, instead of belonging to the country, you pay for them, and the country will pay you. It's the same thing. You just made the police some private business, but it's the same laws at the end of the day, and has to take on the same tasks. It's the same thing. So what have you done? What do you get out of it? Maybe it costs less, or the opposite, but it's the same system. And there's people who fail that you have to help. Otherwise, they'll demand by force. So you need Social Security. You need to promise a person a pension, or what will he have? These systems were not built because somebody handed them out, but rather in a natural In a natural way, we reach them. Our ego, in a Darwinist manner, that's how we developed until today. And the problem is that today we're entering a conflict between our nature and the connected world, because in the connected world I don't have any choice. I have to take them as something that I'm dependent on them. And how to accept this thing in return, I don't know. Family, I know, I have no choice. I'm dependent on them, they're dependent on me, but we have interconnections of obligations, love. We have like a mutual connection, kids, etc. But with others, how will I build the connection? Here we need to have education. On this point, I want to ask, why do we say the solution is education? Why can't we say from an economic standpoint that we should live in a society that's more considerate, more equal, there's solidarity? Listen what you're saying. What kind of solidarity, what kind of equality, what kind of consideration can there be from between people if it's not in our nature? If it's in my nature to overcome you and to be more than you, and I enjoy it, and I'm willing to work my entire life for that. A guy with millions of dollars and another one has billions and one has millions. What's the difference between them, except a few zeros? But he burns his whole life on that. Why? Because that's our nature. So you're saying let them be more equal, more close. For that, you need education. So a person, not through education, not through some fake program inside. We need to understand the profit he will feel from from the society being more balanced. What are you adding to the economy? Which parameters that a person will feel it's worth it for me to be equal to others? Economic profit? Yes. Economic profit. Otherwise now, we'll see to what extent everyone will lose everything and no one will have anything. That people will be able to work, pension, go on vacation. No, we won't be able to arrange our lives in the simplest manner, even these big people. The more zeros they have in their account, they'll really be left with zeros without the one in front of them. You understand how much he has to lose? Everyone. So how still in this system that you're explaining, there needs to be balance, and on the other hand, the ego doesn't allow us to be equal to another. How can we advance forward? I'll tell you in one sentence, but in order to understand it, we'll need to talk more. We need to understand that the nature of an egoistic person is not bad. It's being used wrong. Competition is good. But it must be competition that brings mutual benefit. Say in a factory, you make two groups and you say, we need to create a new computer. Think about it. And then they're competing between them. It's good motivation. And then if we do that, then of course we'll get something from the combination between them. We'll get some product. Leave competition, not competition at the expense of the public, but competition that you'll be great. And whose account am I great? On the public? No, because you're handing out to the public. You have appreciation, respect, love from society. Your kids, hang on. Maybe by giving out more, you have it. Your kids are proud of their father. That everyone says a good father. He has a good heart. You use all the means you have in your ego to be higher, but in a positive manner. To be stronger. There's always a negative hero and a positive hero, but he's a hero. With his power, he protects others. With his power, with his money, he helps others. If we give these new values to society, it depends on education. It's not a simple path. But first of all, with the understanding that we're at a dead end. Otherwise, we're going to a general collapse. We have to get new values, that's all. We have to exchange our values. We see right now they're looking and they have questions. Maybe we'll give stuff out. Maybe we'll do business that'll be a bit more altruistic. There's a bit of understanding here and there. People are starting to understand that it's impossible through force, military force or monetary force, or in a one-sided manner to take advantage of others. It's in opposition. This linear approach is in opposition to the round global world. Let me give you an example that doesn't really represent things, but still. In Russia, they tried to make competition between businesses and countries. The competition? Yes, there were plans for a few years that every factory competed with another. No, it was fake. It didn't really happen. I know those things. Russia warped all the whole thing of this communal living, mutuality. It was all just for the government to control the people and for the country to take control of all the countries. This is an example of the ego in its worst state, that you don't even leave the nation anything. The nation would live from hand to mouth. Everyone. It's not an approach. They advertised themselves as socialists. There was nothing. There was no concern for social things. It's not correct. Kibbutzes, settlements in Israel, was built by idealists. Also in Russia at the beginning it was idealists. Those people at the beginning, next to Lenin, all those people. But apart from 5 or 10 or a few dozen, the rest were egoists. And there was a lack of education. There was identification. They took an example from kibbutzes, but at the end of the day, it collapsed. Why? Because their kids did not receive an education, a global group integral education that shows how they're connected to each other. The ego is against it. They would see the world around that acts according to other rules. And in kibbutzim, they have to be equal to one another. And that's against human nature. And what do they profit from it at the end of the day? That everyone has a shirt, that everyone has lunch. You have the same thing outside. We're in a situation where you won't even have a shirt and you won't have lunch. Today there are conditions that we have to do a revision of our entire approach of Marx and socialists, and to bring from there the correct foundation and the correct approach. I want to conclude this chapter. I want you to try to give me in 2 or 3 characteristics. What is a stable economy? Give me the attributes, and then we'll see how we build it. That takes into account the connection throughout the world between all people, between all societies, at all levels. What connection? Today they understand there's a connection. No, you don't accept it. You don't accept flows from all the nation between businesses, not businesses. I'm talking about the human society, between nations, between countries, until you don't have inside where you live, because this world has become one, like one big family, and you want inside this family to control it by force. You see, it's not working. You need to relate to the world like your family, like something small, something connected. You won't have any choice until you don't recognize that. we'll go through wars and blows, and at the end of the day, our development, this Darwinist development, like he said, brings us to a state where we are all closed in on this planet. I don't see it like a planet where we're on it. It's like a sphere that we're inside. It's more correct. And we're all connected inside this ball. And we have no choice, but everyone inside has to feel like you say, what's your family? And inside, you know what a family is. It's family, grandchildren, parents, everything together. How are they connected to one another? What does each one need? What kind of present? There has to be a feeling, a family, general, global feeling for each one. And whoever has this feeling will succeed. How will this feeling fix the economy? You'll be able to build the economy in accordance with that. How do you build economy in the family? How do you do it? From looking out for whoever has a certain need. Yes, more or less in an equal manner. To the extent that we can, we give everyone what they need. Let's say the entire world is one family that lives in some place, some village. There's land and resources. You have everything and you distribute it according to the needs. So everyone will have what they need out of mutual concern. And that you can only acquire through education. Let's say I'm the father of the family. I see it like that. I'm like responsible for them and I want them to live in peace and abundance. But if I take the kids between them, they don't understand all these small needs of the bigger person. Who's you? Who's you? The father has the responsibility to educate the kids. We have to find these smart people and explain to them so they will manage this general education. We have to educate humanity to the new stage because we used to be operated by instincts, egoistic instincts, and everything was fine until the middle of the last century. That's when we started turning around on the spot and discovering all the problems. If it wasn't for the Second World War, then from the crisis in America, we would have felt that it's spreading to the whole world. But the World War cleans everything out, and it's like you're starting a fresh page. And then you have a reason to live. You have what to do from necessity things. You have an economy that has to work to give everyone bread, to give everyone a shirt. But today you have no choice. Otherwise, just do a war, and that's what they're planning, I'm sure. It brings in a lot of money. And it costs a lot of money. It all gets burnt, and then you have what to work toward. And then there's a lacking, and then you have to rebuild. But at the end of the day, from the state where we're coming from, there's no other way. There's no other way. So if I want to conclude, we're talking about that a person will need to develop an inner format that includes all the connections that exist in the world that have been built throughout the years, and it's all connected and there's no way to escape. That we all relate to it like it's one big family, as crazy as it sounds. Let's try to understand what we're talking about. From the recognition that otherwise you will not survive. I want to add that the reason, why do you need it? Otherwise, we will all, if you already opened this thread, how can you prove this to me? I'm an economist. I see we can recover a bit, we can organize the debts between the countries. I see something on the horizon. I'll bring you 10 experts that will explain to you how to arrange the system so that we'll succeed in getting out of this mess. But so then why don't they organize it? Because it's processes that don't happen in one day. They'll explain to you that there's a change. Society, economy, they'll teach you in a very intelligent way, and they may convince you, not for sure, you're saying, and you're still going back to the fact that it's obligatory from reality because the system became integral. The world is connected. We don't want to recognize this. Okay, I want to use this integral world to get out of the crisis through economic channels. I don't understand the education business, the education part of what you're saying. You won't be able to build a healthy economy without changing men. I'll make sure he has food. I'll make sure he has conditions. If you go outside, a person doesn't want anything. He wants to end the month. He wants to buy a bigger apartment. He wants to go on vacation. He doesn't want you to look after him. He wants the system to give him this, and he is calm. I agree with you. I agree with your plan. You know what you're doing? Instead of doing an integral calculation, you're doing a total calculation. In little parts, you'll get toward the solution. Integral is a total of the slices that you're distributing space, and you understand what I'm saying? You're saying let's do it in an economic way, and then we'll be able to advance to the state in that way. And I'm saying to you, you're not taking into account how people are changing, how the world is changing. Tell me, please, can you truly give work to everyone? Life shows that throughout the years there was an increase in population, and they found, in general, they generated workplaces. Now there's a crisis in Europe, the US, and starting in Israel of unemployment. They had it in the past. They got out of it. They found more jobs. There's like a cycle. What jobs will there be? There's an increase of population, and the population consumes more. It's not going to increase more the population unless you have a war. There's not going to be an increase in the population. They show that in 2050 there won't be families, there won't be a growth. I'm telling you that your problem is that you are also advancing in industry and science and technology and everything, that it's enough for you to have 10% of the population of the world to provide everyone with everything that they need. What are you going to do with the other 90%? You have to take everyone into consideration, just like you have in a family, grandparents, children. 1 out of 10 is working and supplies the whole family with everything. In a family, it's possible because there's connections from heart to heart. How will you do this in the human society where tens of millions, where 100 million work or even less? How are you going to do it? You need to build a new connection between everyone. Today, for example, you have unemployment. It's sort of hidden, but 30-40% of people are just hanging out. The middle class is being erased. It's all those people as a result of the crisis. It's all the lawyers, accountants, banking people. They're all going out to unemployment now. You'll see in a few years, they're all going to be at home. They won't have anything to do. What are you going to do with them? Which system can you use to feed them, to give them bread and a shirt? I'm asking you. It's not simple. We don't see the whole picture. You think, I'll sit and I'll have a plan and I'll be able to profit. Why will they be unemployed? People will buy less? What? Because you're reaching a state where you're advancing in technology, in supply, where you no longer have a market. What are you going to do? There's no more market. You don't understand it? And in general, people don't want to get married. People don't want to have kids. People don't need so much stuff. People are changing, and you're not taking this into account. people are the ones changing. Your consumer is changing. He's not the same consumer you had 100 years ago. So what do we do with him? How are we going to get him to buy stuff that he doesn't need? But we need to profit. Let's say we agree with what you say and we reach a state where we decide economic stuff can't be the solution. What's the difference between that economists can bring us to a balanced state or changing man's nature? I don't know. I'm just giving you data. Take into account there's 10 billion people to supply them with everything they need, and you won't be able to twirl them around to buy and buy and buy and buy and throw stuff out. It's enough already. We have this garbage all over us already. You need for this 100 million workers in the whole world. The rest can sit. They have nothing to do. You have to give them culture, education, entertainment. Otherwise, you're endangering your life. But how can you build an economy from this data? You have no choice but to look at the whole world as one family. Or you need to develop some weapon or some virus that will only leave 100,000 people out of those 100 million. This principle of one family, not one family, forget one family even. I'm telling you, 90% of humanity is unemployed. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Either you'll destroy. In the past, there were revolutions where they destroyed machinery, where they didn't. Instead of 100 workers, they had one machine. If you put any economists down here and tell them 90% unemployment, they understand that it brings to more total chaos. Okay, now my question. Tell me one thing. Why should there not be? Look what's happening in Spain. 40% unemployment. Why shouldn't there be? I'm asking you. What do you want them to produce? They want to build families. They want to live. But what can you give them? How can you employ them? Okay, it's a country on the verge of bankruptcy, but the whole world is like that. It's not that we're going to arrive. We're already in this situation. There's already this there's already this bubble of lies. The problem with economists, the more I read, they each look at it from their narrow perspective. My business has to continue like this. They don't take into account. If you look at economists from the macro level, there's some that will explain that unemployment it comes from us producing everything in China. You can explain these things at an economic level. Why there's unemployment, etc. Because technology and everything went to China. If everything is according to profit, okay. So if it's just like my family, then I give my child to profit. I don't take into account profit. I make sure everyone has. But if you have a family of a few kids, one can help with this, one can help with that. Everyone has their own character, and everyone complements each other. But now the production's moved to China. It's cheap labor there. What's wrong with the economic changes? They're bringing us a new system where we need to find a new balance. Oh, okay, now we're talking. I don't understand why this balance cannot be an economic balance. Transfer the feelings, your feelings from your family to the language of economy. I don't care. But tell me how it's possible. It sounds naive. You sit with your family, with your kids and your wife and your parents and everyone, The grandfather's a bit sick, he needs medication. The kid wants a bike. The mother wants a new dress. The daughter wants a new doll. Everybody wants. There's debts in the family. There's things you need to pay. Electricity, food. How do you do economy? Only if you take everyone's needs into account. You need to supply necessary things to everyone. You can't. Without a bread and a shirt, you can't. Let's just say. After medication, there's no choice. You first have to supply the kids, and then the adults. Where do you have that kind of calculation in the global world? There's no calculation like that. You transferred all kinds of things to China, and you think now it's going to be better. How? How is it going to be better? You'll make a bit more money. You will make the products cheaper. But there's no one to buy them because you took work from people they have nothing to buy with. You're bringing them now the same sandals from China at half price, but they don't have this half price to pay because you took work away from them. You fired them. So what did you do? So this is already an economic approach. It's not economic. It's not. You are obligated. If you took their workplace, you now have to give them a salary, even though you transferred it to China. And great. Now you're saying, we're making a profit because there it's half price. But if it's half price, then why don't you give your profit to the people that are sitting now without work? Because there's no consideration. Economists have an answer for everything, you know. I can answer you that as Spain at the moment, I'll put a VAT on all the products from China, and you'll see how we'll be able to get the GOP back up. That's what they do in each country to protect their product, but there won't be people to buy. You fired people from their work. Okay, I'll give them back their employment by producing inside the country. Through all kinds of economic tools, I can do all kinds of manipulations. Okay, fool around with it and you'll see it won't work in the global world. I don't think we're going to reach a conclusion here. The reality is different. He's talking very nicely and correctly and for short term and in points. But in the global world, it doesn't work. If you don't look at everything like one family, that you have to balance things. The U.S. destroyed itself. 2 years ago, I had a convention in Detroit. It's like a ghost town. And I know this town, it was blooming. It was like Disneyland. They destroyed themselves. Who profited from it? Those same few people that their desire to have a few more zeros in the bank without taking the family into consideration. They did it, and now they're paying for it. And you can't do anything about it until you give people a feeling that we are dependent on one another. So let's say we achieved that feeling. We're going 50, 100 years forward to an era that you're talking about. People have had the integral education. They know they're connected to each other. They're living it. A business's goal today, from a capitalistic point of view, is to get maximum profit for its owners. What we want to verify in the show, what will be the goal of a business in the new era, in this integral era. If today I want maximum, not just for me, for my environment, suppliers and everyone that, we don't need 100 years. I want to ask one thing. How are you taking into consideration the people that will buy from you, that will use your business, the bank, etc.? How will you take them into consideration? You won't. You're shooting yourself in the foot. You're destroying yourself. You don't see a few centimeters ahead. That's what the Americans did. They destroyed the inner system, the inner industry, and now there's nothing to do. Like he said, let's close the borders. Let's make opportunistic politics that were closed inside the country, and then we'll need cars. We'll produce cars. We'll produce everything inside the country. No, it's impossible. The world has advanced. There's laws that operate outside of your desire. You don't manage nature, man's nature, of society's nature. We are developing. That's the Darwinism you mentioned. And we need to take it into account. You can't close off a country. If you close off a country, that's it, you're dead. You see the sanctions on countries. They isolate themselves, and that's it. They isolate them. Again, if you don't take into consideration facts that exist in that we are like one family, an integral world, then you won't manage. Now you're asking, all the economic plans work like this. This plus this plus this minus this equals maximum profit. Don't do maximum, do optimum profit, and then you will succeed. Optimal means that you maintain everything, like in a family. Give everyone a bit more, a bit less, but give everyone, then you'll have consumers, you'll have societies, everyone will bloom, and you'll have middle class, and big ones and small ones. But if you take everyone into consideration, the problem is that we're short-sighted and we're not capable of doing that. And for that, we need education. What is that optimum you said? That you maintain all the things. Look what they did with Africa. It used to be a developing country a few decades ago. You learned it. It's still half of the hunger in the world is in Africa. Because it was. Then they destroyed it. They didn't allow them to develop industrially. They wanted to make it a market. And a market where you destroy the local things, don't develop them, and then start bringing from outside. When they started bringing from outside, what are they going to exist from? We have to conclude the program. I want to ask you just about this last point. This point of the optimum, that you can call it like the new balance of the economy. What's its characteristic? Family economy. Everyone will go home and do their homework, see what that means. Thank you to our viewers. We'll continue in the next programs about the evolution of business. Thank you, Igor. Thank you, Rav Leitman.